Welcome to the first section of the Using Results Chains to Depict Theories of Change module. In order to make the most of this content, we recommend you download USAID Biodiversity How-To Guide 2 of the same name, which this module supports. You can click on the link below this video to download the guide. This module is the second in a series of online modules on biodiversity programming in the context of USAID's Program Cycle Framework. The first module, Developing Situation Models in USAID Biodiversity Programming, and the related USAID Biodiversity How-To Guide 1 can be accessed at the link below this video. It is highly recommended to take the Situation Models module before taking the Current Results Chains module. Just like so many other international development sectors, biodiversity conservation programming has many challenges associated with scale, time frames, and complexity of the problems being addressed. Through these modules and other training resources, the USAID Forestry and Biodiversity Office seeks to achieve a level of biodiversity and integrated biodiversity programming in which conservation purposes are agreed on by stakeholders and are clearly articulated. The programmatic logic is strong and well understood yet adaptable, and the efforts to measure and communicate results are efficient and facilitate learning. Throughout these modules, we will address these general programming challenges. In this introductory presentation, we will provide an overview of key terminology and how results chains are used to depict theories of change in USAID biodiversity programming. Then, in subsequent sections, we'll walk you through the steps to develop results chains for your programs. To follow along in How-To Guide 2, this section covers pages 7 through 9. By the end of the module, you will be able to articulate what a theory of change and results chain are, describe their main components, and the relationship between them. You will know the main steps to develop a results chain from a situation model and be ready to participate actively in the process. You will also understand the multiple uses and benefits of results chains, as well as some of their limitations. So, what is a theory of change? This is a generic term that is used a lot in the program design and evaluation community, but there are many definitions. As you know, theories of change are required by the USAID Program Cycle Operational Policy, ADS 201, and by the agency's biodiversity policy. And that's because they help us do a better job at programming USAID investments. By programming, we mean the whole process of designing, awarding, implementing, monitoring, evaluating, and learning from our projects and activities. The USAID Program Cycle Operational Policy, ADS 201, defines the theory of change as a narrative description, usually accompanied by a graphic or visual depiction of how and why a purpose or result is expected to be achieved in a particular context. The USAID Biodiversity Programming How-To Guides expand on this definition by describing a theory of change as a description of the logical causal relationships among a strategic approach and multiple levels of conditions or preliminary results needed to achieve a long-term result. Theories of change can also be visualized as a roadmap of change that outlines pathways or steps to get from an initial set of conditions to a desired end result. Another way of describing a theory of change is that it's essentially a series of if-then statements that show the assumed logical causal pathway to a final outcome or purpose. Theories of change define how a design team thinks a strategic approach will contribute to achieving its desired results. In other words, theories of change reflect a team's assumptions about how change happens, which may or may not be true. Theories of change focus on the achievement of results, not actions. And theories of change are composed of assumptions that can be tested. Let's look at an example of a narrated theory of change. In this example, a team wants to describe how training to combat wildlife crime will contribute to improvements in the status of key species. Their theory of change might read as follows. If a training program, for example, wildlife enforcement, is implemented, then the desired competencies will be acquired by the target audiences, which in this example may include park rangers and a wildlife reserve. This, combined with adequate resources and the fulfillment of certain enabling conditions, will lead the target audience to carry out the desired compliance actions, such as setting and enforcing wildlife laws. If compliance is carried out, then there should be better enforcement of wildlife laws and agreements and prosecution of criminals, which should, in turn, increase risks and reduce profits for wildlife criminals. If enforcement is better, then there should be a reduction in levels of wildlife crime, leading ultimately to improvements in the status of protected and regulated species. Overall, this narrative shows a team's assumptions about how they think their strategic approach will lead to a series of results, each linked in a causal sequence, ultimately leading to the reduction of the threat and the conservation of biodiversity. In biodiversity conservation, as in most other development sectors, the problems addressed are complex, with many interconnected factors, conditions, and stakeholders. Solutions to these complex problems are rarely simple. This makes a need for comprehensive and adaptive programming tools even more essential. Theories of change can be spoken, narrated, or expressed in a variety of visual forms, one of which is the use of logic models. USAID describes a logic model as a graphic or visual model that organizes and depicts the team's thinking on the logical relationships between what the project will do and the changes it expects to see. There are a wide range of logic models, including, but not limited to, log frames, causal loop diagrams, stakeholder-based models, results frameworks, and results chains. In terms of USAID requirements, all projects must have a theory of change and a logic model to depict it. A results chain is one option to comply with this requirement. All USAID activities that use biodiversity earmarked funds are required to have a theory of change, and it is highly recommended that the activity theory of change be depicted in a logic model. Results chains are the logic model of choice for USAID biodiversity programming and will be our focus for the remainder of this section. In this video presentation, we introduced you to theories of change. The next presentation will discuss results chains in greater detail.